working backwards from what I just reported, what can you tell us about that meeting with Speaker Pelosi?
Well, I think she made clear that we are wholly committed to passing this infrastructure bill, that we are glad that Republicans are stepping up and committing to delivering for the American people on infrastructure, and that we understand that part of Building Back Better is doing that infrastructure work. But Building Back Better also means making sure that no American is left behind in our economy. So we are going to have to use the reconciliation process to address some of our other economic needs, including things like universal child care, expanding Medicare. There are other paid family leave. This plan fundamentally that President Biden has put forward is about work and workers. And those things go together like a hand in a glove. And so we have to do both of them. And that is our plan, to move them both forward.
It sounds like the bipartisan infrastructure bill is likely to move first, basically pass the Senate first. And it sounds like what we're hearing through the Hill and so forth is that Speaker Pelosi is saying when the Senate passes that bipartisan bill, she will just hold it, which she can do, just hold it in the House for months before bringing it up for a vote. And she will bring it up for a vote around the time that the other bill, the reconciliation bill, is also ready for a vote. Is that what's going to happen here?
Yes, and as you know, Lawrence, sometimes the House goes first, sometimes the Senate goes first. Mm-hmm. And so what we're talking about doing here is really trying to deliver on what the American people said they wanted when they elected President Biden, which is a strong economy, a globally competitive workforce. And so that means not only investing in infrastructure, everything from roads and transportation to climate resilience, but also investing in the people who do the important work of America. Making sure we're investing in health care, making sure that we're investing in child care, making sure that we're doing that. And so the plan here is to champion this infrastructure bill, to be grateful that it's a bipartisan bill. We hope and encourage Republicans to support the rest of President Biden's agenda.
And of course, even Joe Manchin says he doesn't expect them to do that. He expects to get them on the bipartisan bill, and then you will have to do the work on the rest. And so were you in the meeting with Steve Ricchetti and the Progressive Caucus today?
Yes, sir, I was.
And so in that meeting, you know that on the reconciliation bill, you're basically going to be negotiating with Joe Manchin and more moderate Democratic senators and trying to come to a spot. Where do you think that's going to, how do you think that's going to be arrived at? Steve Richetti's got a lot of experience in putting that together. Did he give you any guidance on this today?
Well, the Biden White House has been incredibly responsive about being in communication with us, about listening to not only the Congressional Progressive Caucus, where I'm deputy chair, but other parts of the caucus. And what we're going to do here is lay out what we want. So we're going to decide on the kind of child care that this country needs to move forward, the kind of paid family leave that we need to move forward, the kind of investment in health care that we need to move forward. Then we will hopefully get buy-in across the ideological spectrum within the Democratic Party to do that and to move forward. And what Senator Manchin said in the clip that you played this morning with Stephanie Ruhle is absolutely fair. We can't agree to a number without knowing what we're spending that money on. That would simply be irresponsible. If my children say, can I have $5? My first question is, what for? So it's exactly the same here in Congress. It's not about the number. It's about what we're going to be doing to help the American people. And we have to be championing those priorities. And today's conversation with the White House was talking about what those top priorities are and why they're so important in communities across this country.
Let me imagine a scene where you and Joe Manchin are in a room in a negotiating discussion about the Democrats-only bill in September, when that will start to get very, very real. And you've laid out what's in the bill, but Senator Manchin simply doesn't like the total amount of the cost of the bill, the total amount of the spending in the bill. And he might even be in favor and happy and think everything you're proposing is good, but he just thinks we can't afford to spend that much. What's the case you make to Senator Manchin about the spending number, whatever that turns out to be?
I think there are 2 points to make. The first is the extreme costs of doing nothing in some of these cases. We are simply falling behind as a global workforce because we have failed to invest in things like paid family leave that every other competitor nation has done. And so there is a cost to doing nothing. And I would try to make that case to, my earring just fell off. I would try to make that case to Senator Manchin. The second thing I would try to do is say to him, look, we are going to pay for these things. The president has made clear that he is going to champion a fair tax system. And so, yes, these things are investments. Just like the investments in infrastructure, they have a price tag, but we are going to pay for them by having a fair tax system. And the American public, Democratic, Republican, Independent, the kind of district that I represent, they support not just creating jobs, not just supporting workers, but doing it by having a fair tax system. And so we really have to think about what's going to be the net extra spending after we adjust our tax system to be fair.
You seem like someone who's uniquely positioned to kind of negotiate this sort of thing with Joe Manchin, since you're representing a district that was formerly a Republican district. You are obviously surrounded by Republicans in your life in that district all the time. You're not in one of those isolated, protected one-party districts. And so you know his concerns in the politics of West Virginia, which are overwhelmingly more Republican even than your district in Orange County. And that's something that everyone's going to have to keep in mind in any negotiation with Joe Manchin, isn't it?
Well, that is why it is so important about what we are talking about, because things like lowering the age for Medicare eligibility, things like making sure that Medicare covers hearing and vision coverage, things like making sure that no family has to go bankrupt or cannot afford to pay for child care, making sure that we have paid family leave. These policies are tremendously popular. They are popular across party lines. And so I think this is a really important case for my colleagues in the Democratic Party across the ideological spectrum to be listening to their communities. Because as you often know, where the party is in Washington, D.C., is not always where the people are of this country. And that's who we need to be responsive to in this package.